There was a lot that happened this weekend in Pittsburgh Pirates baseball, both on and off the field. We're going to discuss all of it on today's episode of Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And it is your team every day, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day here on the Locked On Podcast Network and the Locked On Pirates podcast. My name is Ethan Smith, your host, who brings you all of your news, analysis, opinions, and reactions to everything going on in the world of the Pittsburgh Pirates every single day, from a lifelong fan to lifelong fans. As always, every Monday, we have Gary Morgan. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. If you have a plumbing, h-vac, or electrical product needs, make sure you go do that at supplyhouse.com. And unlike the Pirates, you're not going to overpay for it. And yeah, that line that I just said should probably be a good summarization of the show. So you got a pretty good summary already of how I feel about certain things. But before we even start, Gary, how are you doing today, sir? Good?
Yeah, I'm good, man. Big win yesterday.
Yeah, thankfully, for my own blood pressure, I didn't watch the game yesterday. I was covering AAABA, which is a massive tournament up here in Johnstown, Pennsylvania. Some people may have heard of it. I was covering their banquet last night, was watching the game on my phone, and then the banquet started, and at that point, it was 2-1. I got 3 missed calls from my father, so I knew something happened, and then I looked at my phone, and it was 6-5. So interesting weekend for sure on and off the field, but off the field, I think, is where a lot of the listeners are going to have some choice words for some things, because we saw the hot stove get very hot as far as the trade deadline is concerned. If you remember on this show last week on Thursday, the last episode you guys got, because I was very busy this weekend, I said that all of this was going to start on the weekend. It started pretty much when I thought it would, and a lot of things happened. Randy Arozarena goes to Seattle, takes in a Rays game before he leaves. Jazz Chisholm goes to the New York Yankees. AJ Puck to the Diamondbacks. Jesse Winker to the Mets. Danny Jansen to the Reds. There's a lot of moves, and we're not going to cover all of them because we don't have to, because they are not Pirates moves. They are moves that involved people that the Pirates may or may not have been interested in. They involve moves that Pirates Twitter may or may not have been interested in, and the team probably had zero interest in. But I can understand both sides of this coin, I think, where the frustration among the fan base is, okay, are they going to do something? They have until tomorrow at 4, I believe is the trade
6.
deadline now. 6 o'clock?
6.
Okay. So they have until tomorrow. They have 48 hours to still figure this, 36 hours to figure this out. And a lot of these moves, I was kind of seeing the prices on these things and some things that would be reported about certain stuff, like how the Pirates were second place in the Jazz Chisholm sweepstakes. Yeah, great. We'll fly the banner next time we're at PNC Park. I'm actually okay with this. A lot of these guys that I saw go off the board, Gary, I just think that the prices seem to be too high. And I genuinely don't know how much they really would have helped things in the grand scheme of things compared to the price that they would have come with. So what are your thoughts on what happened this weekend as far as all of this stuff that's gone on the trade deadline so far?
I mean, the first thing I start with is I don't really care about the prices. I looked at the overall board to begin with, and I've been on this train for a while. I just don't see anything that fixes the problems or really, really helps this team. I don't think Jazz does. I really don't. Not a big fan personally. Same time, I can't argue he would have made the team better. I mean, I think he's a talent. I just don't think he's a talent that is really going to fix your issues to the point where you're not going to be complaining about center field anymore for the next couple of years. I think you'd be right back to complaining about his lack of production as early as next week. I mean, it's kind of what he does. He's a streaky guy. I think he's one of those guys that has kind of gotten the prominence he's gotten because he's a human highlight reel.
Yeah.
He does really, really incredible, flashy things. The problem is, if you really watch him play, you find out he's a hell of a lot more flash than he is substance. And, Luis Robert, well, there's nobody looking at him right now. Do you even see any rumors? Well, there's a reason. They're asking for a king's ransom. And on top of that, you get the privilege of paying him like $50 million to play half seasons. I don't know. I don't know that I'd want that. Would I be mad if the Pirates got it? No. But like, those are the two that like kind of sort of fit. But that's all it was kind of sort of, Ethan. There isn't
Yeah.
perfect out there. Even right now, I don't have anybody that I'm like, oh, I have to have it. I want something. I think they need to bring in something. But like, I can't sit here and tell you I've got to have that brand. I've got to have that dude. I don't see it.
Yeah, and I mean, at this point, you look at some of the names that you could flirt around with, right? Isaac Paredes was one that I really wanted. He goes to Chicago. Very puzzling move, I will say, on that part, but different story for a different day. Yandy Diaz, still, I believe, out there. I don't know if he got traded yet, but still a guy that I wouldn't mind bringing in. Lane Thomas is a guy that you like a lot. I like a lot. I would love to bring him in as a bat. Jesse Winker was one of them. He's gone. So that's the thing that's very interesting is I kind of want people to understand that the Pirates are going to have some of the similar issues they have now going into 2025, kind of no matter what they do. I know that sounds really weird, but unless they were to trade for like Mike Trout and he stayed healthy, a lot of the issues don't get fixed. And that's where I am also a little okay that Ben Cherington has kind of stuck to his guns a little bit. He hasn't really suggested much that he was going to overpay for things to get this team going. And at the end of the day, you guys have heard me and Gary say this a million times. This is a 500 fringe 500 team. And look where they're at. They're 53 and 52. And maybe even more importantly, Gary, this weekend, which we'll get into the on-field stuff a little bit during the show for sure, you're missing arguably your third best hitter right now, who just got put on the IL yesterday. You're missing your best hitter, who should be coming back today, I believe, after being on bereavement. And you're still missing two of your pretty good starters, even though your starting pitching staff has been good. So this team isn't even at full strength right now. And they're still finding a way to be 53 and 52.
Yeah. I would say like a good rule of thumb, though, because I saw some fans putting out like these lists of things that we got to go get. Some of these lists were like 5-6 deep, Ethan.
Yeah.
Like, listen, if your list goes above like 2, you ain't ready to be in this.
Yeah.
You ain't. Like you think your GM should be able to go out and get 5 or 6 things, but that's not reality. That's just not the way it works. There's not going to be 5-6 things for one thing. And even if you got 5-6 things this year with what was available, this ain't a World Series team. Sorry. It just isn't. You can get in the playoffs, but this ain't a World Series team. Not if you think you're 5 or 6 players away from getting in. Think about it for 5 seconds. Think about what you're asking them to do. You're asking them to give up everything that could potentially make them sustainable into the next decade for a shot this year at getting into the playoffs with a team that you're openly telling me you don't think can make it by asking for 5 or 6 players. That's just stupid.
Yeah, and I think the best comparison that I think I saw all weekend of what this is going to be. Folks, I know that we all wanted the Pirates to make moves. It's fun. I think they will, by the way. I'm going to still say that at the time of recording, Gary. I still think they will make a move before tomorrow.
I'm with you. Me too.
And I think the best team to look at as far as this is all concerned is, especially with what you said about how you could see this being a playoff team, but you don't think it's a World Series team. There's one team, folks, that I implore you to watch throughout the rest of the year That is, I believe, the only team that has made multiple moves as far as additions. The Seattle Mariners. Sit back and ask yourself, folks, if you watch the Mariners or you even know anything about Seattle and how they are as a team, ask yourself after they get Yimi Garcia and Randy Arozarena if that's a World Series team. Are they better than Houston? I'm going to say no. Even with those moves, I'm still saying no. Are they even better than Texas? I'm still going to say no.
No, much like the Pirates, though, they have, and this is where there's a similarity there. They can pitch like them.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You get into a series, then the pitching, all bets are off. Things can happen. So there's incentive to try to get there. It's not like I'm saying don't. Yeah. I'm just saying if you really think this team's 5-6 players away, you don't really think they're ready. If you think they're 1 or 2 pieces away, okay. I mean, that's all there is to it. I think they're 1 or 2 pieces away from getting into the playoffs. And you get into the playoffs, you have a shot to go all the way. That's all there is to it. I wouldn't put money on this team. I wouldn't put money on the Dodgers. So, I'm a bad person to look at for that. I don't bet.
Yeah. And at the end of the day, too, folks, we're going to talk about why we think something could happen over the next 36 hours. Again, the trade deadline tomorrow at 6 p.m. I'll probably be going live right after it's done to discuss whatever happens, but what's still out there and who could the Pirates be in on? We'll discuss in just a moment. Today's episode of Locked On Pirates is brought to you by Stitch Fix. Style so good that you can feel it at stitchfix.com/MLB, because you know that instant confidence boost you get from an outfit that makes you look really good. Well, that's what I get with Stitch Fix. With Stitch Fix, you get a stylist who understands your style, your size, and your budget. They all do the shopping for you, and it's the easiest way to update your wardrobe this season. You can easily upgrade your wardrobe this year with a pro stylist that helps you find new on-trend favorites that will work for you. All I do is give them my size, my style, and my budget, and they send me 5 just-for-me pieces, plus outfit recommendations and pro styling advice. And if I don't like the stuff, which, trust me, I'm very basic when it comes to my my wardrobe, if you will, then I just send it back and they refund me. It doesn't cost me anything. And that's what you do. If you don't love something, just send it back. Shipping, returns, and exchanges are always free. Style that makes you feel as good as you look. Get started at stitchfix.com/MLB and get $20 off your first fix. That's stitchfix with an X.com/MLB for $20 off. Stitchfix.com/MLB. You must redeem within 7 days of sign up. The offer does not include kids fixes, but make sure you get styles so good that you can feel it at stitchfix.com/MLB. Thank you to Stitch Fix for coming back on the show. Been a while since we talked about Stitch Fix and all of your wardrobe needs. Honestly, if it's just black and yellow, I think I'll be fine. Speaking of black and yellow, make sure you check out Locked On Steelers. Steelers training camp began last week. Chris Carter is boots to the ground in Latrobe every day, bringing you guys some very fun Steelers news. Check out Locked On Sports Today with Peter Bukowski. Phenomenal show over there that I've been on this year once or twice already. Always covering all the sports news, so make sure you go there. And also, if you want to listen to Pirates games on the go, make sure you just search Pirates on the Sirius XM app. And you can find all that you need as far as everything Pittsburgh Pirates on the go. So, again, Tuesday at 6 will be the trade deadline, Gary. Still some things out there that I think, and again, I think we're both in agreement that the Pirates will make a move of some sort. Now, what do you think most likely, if you had to give your most educated guess, who do you think it would be?
I mean, it's hard for me to separate what I want from what I hope, from what I think they'll do. I think Lane Thomas fills a need. They need an outfielder, I think, and he's a starting quality outfielder with a year of control. I also think that the Nationals don't have to sell him. So I bet it's going to cost a little more than they're comfortable with, but I think he's a solid fit that probably really helps. I don't think the A's are selling anybody. Just don't. I don't think we're going to get anybody out of them. And I've heard some other things like about potentially Yandy Diaz maybe being a guy, but I don't know if that's the greatest fit in the world. It kind of is if you think about it from a perspective of Rowdy's at least slowed by this back. Hayes has been slowed by this back all year. You might be able to move some guys around and get some more at bats for him, and he fills in nicely. That's not a great fit either. You know, I do think they're going to get somebody, Ethan. I'm partially starting to think it's going to be somebody that nobody's been talking about yet, you know, because most of what's out there right now, it's ill-fitting at best.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, Lane Thomas is the one I think me and you are definitely in agreement on. I think that the argument I would make as far as them trading him is they do have a crap ton of young outfielders they want to get looks at. You already saw them bring up James Wood. I believe Robert Hassel should be coming up soon if he's not already up.
Dylan Cruz next year.
Yeah, Dylan Cruz, maybe even later this year if he keeps playing the way he is. He's playing really good at AAA. So there's a lot of guys that they have down there that I think they want to get looks at. That's why another thing that I think is very good to bring up before I say somebody else that I think they could go get is remember that these guys that Ben Cherington is interested in, quote unquote, if he is interested. We don't know if he's interested in Thomas. Maybe he is, maybe he isn't, right?
Yeah.
Remember, if he is, though, if he doesn't get the guy, just remember that down the line. This isn't the only time you could trade for people. This is not, it's not like a bylaw that you have to trade between the hours of July 27th and July 31st 30th every single year. And that's the only time you can trade. Who's to say, like you just mentioned, Dylan Cruz, who's to say he's not ready to go at the beginning of 2025 and they need to move Lane Thomas and his price becomes cheaper, mind you, and you go get him if you have that issue. Because again, folks, going into 2025, no matter what move they make at this point, unless it is a blockbuster, they talk about it on the news for a week move, they're going to have the exact same issues next season that they have currently right now. They're going to still need a center fielder. They're still going to need probably another corner outfielder. And depending on how things go for the rest of the year, they might need a third baseman or a corner infielder. That's just all. I mean, those things are not going to change. Now, as far as what I'm able to separate what I think they'll do, because my expectations are just tempered now, which is why I'm usually in a positive mood on the show. What I think they'll do versus what I want them to do. I don't know why his name has just been stuck in my head lately. Tommy Pham just keeps getting stuck in my head. I don't know why. For whatever reason.
It makes sense. It makes sense as far as the move goes. I will say they place an awful lot more on what a guy does to a locker room than other teams. And I normally would kind of like use that to say absolutely not on Pham, right? Like I just don't see any way that's going to happen. But they brought Yasmani Grandal in here. And Yasmani Grandal has the exact same profile. You know, for lack of a better way of putting it, total a-hole. So, I mean, there's really no nice way to put it. He's not popular. Like, they like what he does on the field, at least for the certain pitchers that enjoy throwing to him. Tommy Pham might just sock you in the face if he has a bad game. You know, I don't know that you want that here. To me, like, you could get a better rental than that. You could pretty easily get a better rental than that. So I might look elsewhere than Tommy Pham if I'm them. But
yeah, and that was more of what I think they'll do.
Yeah.
I don't know why. That's just kind of the thought that's in my head as to what they'll do.
And I too have a bad feeling about it, so I hear you.
Yeah, it's like I could see the tweet kind of happen already. Like I could see it. And then you know what'll follow. Well, this is the team that employs Aroldis Chapman and employed Domingo Germán and employs G1. But yeah, you'll see all that for like a week and a half about all that stuff. and also with other things that are still available. I mean, Lane Thomas is the one that stuck to. I think that one stuck on me. But man, I know it won't happen, but I want it to happen so damn bad, Gary. I just want them to get on the phone with Tampa Bay and just ask them what it would take for Josh Lowe.
That would be great. Yeah.
I need to know what it would just call. It doesn't have to happen, but just flirt with the idea and at least give me the satisfaction of saying you tried to go get that bat in PNC Park. And at this point, I'm going to throw it out there. If Nick Gonzalez is out for a long time, go get Brandon Lowe. I think his bat in this park would work great. And if he's going to be out for weeks, not days, you might need a second baseman right now.
Yeah, I mean, I think I might go DeYoung from the White Sox as well.
Wouldn't mind that either.
That's a good utility guy. We've been talking about maybe getting a veteran utility guy in here to kind of replace what Triolo does. Have somebody that can play just about everywhere. He's got a bigger bat than Triolo for sure. So if you're going to have to play somebody at second base and third here and there and first, he can do all that. That might be a really good fit actually to get through the end of the season with some of these injury concerns they've had.
Yeah, and you're also not married to him either. Like, it's just, okay,
right.
Thank you, and that's it. And now I wish the Cardinals were sellers because I'd love a certain switch-hitting utility man they have over there, but they would never in a million years trade into the Pirates right now and the way things are going. But we discussed all the off-field stuff. On-field, there's still things happening, obviously. Pittsburgh Pirates, of course, had a series loss to the Arizona Diamondbacks over the weekend, and now it's Paul Skeens Day in Houston. So we're going to take a look at all of that stuff to end today's episode of Locked On Pirates. Today's episode is brought to you by Supply House. Go to supplyhouse.com for all of your plumbing, HVAC, and electrical product needs because it's the site made for the skilled trades. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Shop a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from over 400 top brands and get your order delivered right to your door with fast shipping from coast to coast. Need help with an order? Get expert support and industry-leading service from the friendliest folks in the business and talk to a real person every time. So join the thousands of trade pros already benefiting from their free membership at supplyhouse.com/TM and order plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies from anywhere with just a few clicks at supplyhouse.com. Alrighty, folks, and welcome back to the final part of today's episode of Locked On Pirates here on the Locked On Podcast Network. I will also ask Gary for his thoughts about the weekend. Here's my thoughts about the weekend. The Arizona Diamondbacks feel like a complete baseball team and will likely be one of the three wild card teams. I can just confidently say that because I think they only get healthier from their pitching staff soon, so that should be fun. And also, welcome back to competitive baseball, everybody. Seriously, that's all I could say. Gary, if you have anything else, go for it, because that's all I have to say.
Well, yeah, competitive baseball is something that I don't think people will remember how to handle. And I don't think people remember how to not be sellers at the deadline. This series, first of all, they hung in there and they really, really were outgunned. They were missing a lot of what makes them competitive, quite frankly. And they held in there. That game that they actually pulled out, I think it's important to note, as much as we rip on Shelton, man, when he shot his shot, it landed. I mean, he got rowdy off the bench. You can tell it still isn't right. He wasn't swinging the bat 100% right. He was making faces. That dude was up there for one reason and one reason only, to hit a home run. He came up just short, and he barely made it to second base. That dude is probably not quite ready to play yet. I would imagine he doesn't start tonight even.
Probably not.
So gutty performance by Rowdy Tellez just to get up there and take a great at bat with a ton of swings to finally get a pitch that he could hammer, and he did. And he started that whole thing off. Brian Hayes finally stepped up a little bit yesterday. Couple base hits. You have to have that when you're missing all this talent. So it was a good sign to start seeing some of that stuff. And finally, last but not least here, the Pirates, for whatever reason, as short as they are on outfielders, have finally decided now is the time on Jack Suwinski. So I'm a little surprised that it's now when I feel like they're so desperate for outfielders, but he has not done anything. So, I mean, like, this is long overdue. There's some people that I think are still wanting to believe in him for next year. I'm not 100% rolling that out, but this is a pivot point for him. He goes down and figures it out, or he doesn't. And either way, I don't know how you come to camp next year counting on him.
Yeah, and I think the most frustrating thing about Suwinski is you've seen it a little bit before. I think that's what we're kind of annoyed with. Is last year, I mean, the kid hit 26 home runs, albeit he didn't look like a world beater by any means any means at all. But he's at 9 this year, I think. Like, I don't even remember it, but it feels like he gets like 1 a month. And that's not what he's there for. He's there to crush the ball. And when he hits the ball, he can hit it far. I mean, that's just who he is. And I don't mean to be mean here, because Jack's a great guy from what I've heard. I mean, Jack and his family are great guys, but what good does your bat right here do on every strike three that you look at right down the middle? I mean, how many pitches has he gotten this year, Gary, with 2 strikes where you're in the heart of the zone? I'm not talking about like painting corners. I'm talking about heart of the zone pitches that he just watches go by. And it's frustrating.
His problems are so multifaceted, they're really hard to talk about. Like, he'll just stare at a pitch like on strike 1 that's right down the middle. And, you feel like maybe he wasn't ready to hit. Or then he, watches strike 3 and it's right down the middle, and you don't understand what he was thinking. Of course you should be looking for something over the heart of the zone. He gets locked up as soon as he sees what he didn't plan on. You can't live as a hitter like that. And it's something that he's going to have to learn, and he's going to have to adjust to. And he may have a major league future. It may not be here. It may be here. But this was the right move, sending him down. He's been a frustration point all year. He's actually, I think, gotten in the way of quite often them looking like they were doing anything better or improving. I think he is a poster child for not improving. And, you can't have things like that on your team when you're trying to come out of the darkness. That's all.
Yeah, and it's no slight either. I mean, it's just, at this point, now I could understand if the Pirates were in a similar position as they were the last couple of years. It's like, let them figure it out. I mean, it wouldn't matter. At that point, it wouldn't matter, but now it does. And I think it's interesting because a lot of people are saying, oh, what's this move going to be? It's Reynolds coming off a bereavement. That's what the move is. It hasn't been confirmed yet, but that's probably the move.
I understand why that caught some people off guard, though. It did, it is trade season. It does look, you do start thinking that it could be something like that, but I do believe it to be Reynolds as well. Jack Suwinski is frustrating because that power is so necessary. You really have to hope that they can get something out of him in the off season, like to figure out what the hell happened to him.
Yeah, and it's you take a look at this Arizona series overall again, and I believe it was Friday after that game that I tweeted out something that I wanted a lot of people to see and a lot of people to understand is since the break, they have played 5 games that were decided by 1 run. 5 of the 9 games that they've played since they came out of the break were decided by 1 run, and they're 3-2 in those games. It's very interesting, isn't it?
It is very interesting. The only thing we didn't talk about, Ethan, and maybe it's because it's not on your agenda, but the other side of the trade deadline. There really still could be some exits. It really could still move
I think so.
a Marco Gonzalez or a Martin Perez, or I'm a little bit less inclined to think they're going to move Aroldis Chapman at this point. But
I don't think they can.
well, they certainly can.
Well,
I just don't think they will. I think there'll be a market in other words, is what I'm saying. But just look at what's gone for relief pitchers this year. I would be really tempted if I were a GM to do so. You're basically looking at getting probably 2 free talents, 2, even 3 free talents, like for somebody that you're only going to have for another couple weeks. Yeah, it's hard to not. I don't think they will, but still.
Yeah, I would say that surprisingly, the reliever market has been what surprised me the most. I mean, when I saw Dylan Lesko getting moved, I was like, I said, okay, wait a minute. Colin Holderman might not be all too bad as a trade piece. Like right now. I'm just saying, I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not saying that he's going to get traded, and I'm not saying it makes the Pirates a better team this second. But if that's the reliever market, and what was the other trade the Phillies made? Where they traded like their number 5 and number 7.
Sir Anthony Dominguez.
No, it was the other one they made. It was the one they made with I can't even remember who it was with, but they traded their number 5 pitching prospect and their number 7 pitching prospect for a reliever. I can't remember who it was all of a sudden now.
It doesn't matter. I get the point.
Either way,
they traded a reliever for 2 nice pieces, right?
Yeah, and it makes you wonder, does Colin Holderman have a market? Of course he does. Do you trade him is the question. I think is the big part of that there.
It's so hard to subtract from a strength when it's kind of gotten you where you are. Like I heard, that rumor that Pony came up with Bednar for Mayo, I know everyone laughed at it, but from being on the group chat that I've confirmed that myself, that it was out there at least. I have it on pretty strong authority that like Bob Nutting has a firm no on trading David Bednar, but that's a trade I would 100% entertain. That fixes a position potentially for years and years to come and gets rid of, in my mind, something that is going to fade over the next couple of years.
And something that you can easily replace pretty much a week from now.
Yes.
So, I don't want to
unpopular opinion. It's not like I'm pitching for it, but like just saying it could be done, and I think it could improve the team. But
on top of all this, tonight we'll keep this real short to end the show. Paul Skeens will pitch again. It'll be a very fun matchup evening again. I know a lot of people look at the matchups that Paul Skeens will get every time he pitches. He will likely face Yordan Alvarez tonight. I will be locked in for every at-bat that he faces Yordan Alvarez because I kind of think that's very comparable to when he faced Ohtani. It's kind of like 2 Goliaths going at each other, and I think Yordan's going to catch him, and he's going to catch Yordan. You also get Kyle Tucker, and I can't remember all the guys that are hurt over there, but I think Houston's a fun matchup for Skeens, I think, really. I think he's going to get tested a little bit tonight, but I think obviously like he's done in the past already, I think he'll rise to the occasion. But I'm very interested to see how he does against this Houston offense because it's a very good unit for the most part.
Yeah, me too. And I think all things being equal, the Houston can't really pitch the way they used to. So there's a good shot that your bats can kind of carry the day. This series you should go into it thinking that you should win. I really think the Pirates need to have that mindset, and if they don't, again, maybe they aren't ready.
Fair enough. Well, folks, thank you so much for tuning into the Locked On Pirates podcast here on the Locked On Podcast Network, where it is your team, your Pittsburgh Pirates every single day. Find me on Twitter at MVP_Ethan or at Locked On Pirates. find the show on YouTube and all of your audio platforms. Make sure you listen to the Pirates Fan Forum every Thursday over on DK Pittsburgh Sports with Gary Morgan and Jim Stam. Make sure you go to Steel City Pirates, because I'm sure if a trade does happen, one of us will be writing about it pretty soon. And if a trade happens here, I'll be talking about it throughout the evening on this show, doing a short and doing a show. Anything I missed, Gary, as far as what's going on?
No, I would just say everybody should tune into your show and, make sure that they fill you in on the ones you missed that came over through at like 6:15,
Yeah. Right. Because I already know, like, folks, by the way, just to end this on a funny note, I am covering this all week. So, today and tomorrow. So just expect something to happen, when I'm not available, because that's just how this works. But thank you so much for tuning into this show. As you always do, folks, have a wonderful rest of your Monday. See you tomorrow, or maybe sooner than that. But until then, we'll see you on the flip side.